If someone's just getting into SEO now, it's definitely a tricky time to get into the industry. There's a lot to learn and a lot of history there, but I think it's really important to focus on something I always talk about, which is EEAT, experience, expertise, authority, and trust. I do feel like sometimes it's talked about a bit much in our industry, but that's for good reason. And that's because that's just the direction that search engines are going. For example, if you have individual contributors or experts or specialists or doctors or whatever the case may be that work at your company and represent your company, search and social and internet behavior in general is going in a direction where people really want to hear from those individual experts. They want to follow them on social media. They want to read their LinkedIn posts. They want to follow them on TikTok and watch their videos. And so search has to keep up with this. Search and, ranking systems on Google and Bing understand people really like this type of content. People really like engaging with real experts. They really like to follow them on their different social media platforms or watch the videos that they're producing. So the more that you can align with that and understand it's kind of a people first direction that search is going in, it's less about using tools to generate as much content as possible and maybe not including the name of the author because you used AI or using a fake author name to try to trick search engines into thinking that you have experience or creating these fake bios to kind of claim that you have experience where you don't. They're getting more and more sophisticated. Google and Bing and the other search engines are getting more sophisticated in being able to identify that people are not being transparent and authentic about who they actually are. There's a lot of different signals that they look at. And the more that you can kind of create that profile of here's a real person or a real brand or a real expert that has all these different data points. So they're mentioned on all these different websites. They have PR, they have real employees that work at the company. They have a Google business profile page. They have all these different signals that Google and Bing and everybody are looking at to say, well, this is a real company. These are real people. They have real opinions and real insights. And lo and behold, large language models as well will often cite real experts and they know about real experts and real people. So the more that you can kind of focus on that people first approach to SEO, the safer I think you'll be from algorithmic demotions. And the more success you're going to see with that type of content going forward. There have been different moments in time where it feels like Google's really ramping up its fight against exploitative SEO and spam tactics. Now, this has been true for a really long time. I would say starting in probably about the early 2000s, Google really started to take seriously the fact that people were spamming Google and finding these shortcuts and loopholes and ways of tricking the algorithm to drive lots of traffic to their websites. So they had to patch this up in different ways over time. First, we had Matt Cutts that was representing Google and the Google web spam team who shared a lot of guidance publicly. And around 2010, I would say, is when that really started to ramp up. And Google introduced some new guidelines and some new techniques to kind of indicate to Google, for example, the no follow tag. We're building these links or we have links pointing to our website, but we're not trying to do this in a way that's tricking Google or trying to get SEO value from these links. So you can put no follow on them, for example, if you have a forum or something and there's people used to spam forum signatures with links back to their site. So you could forum owners could now put no follow to say that none of these links are actually going to pass SEO value anymore. But Google introduced massive algorithm updates like Panda and different versions of Panda, Penguin in 2012 and different versions of Penguin, link spam updates, the Medic update in 2018, the Florida update, all these major algorithm updates, which Google has really said, we know what you're all doing. We see the tactics that you're using and you're sharing very publicly in many cases to try to trick Google, to try to drive lots of traffic to your websites. I think they pay very close attention to what is discussed in SEO communities and of course black hat forums and things like this, because they need to figure out how to patch up their algorithm. It's very, very important to Google to not let spam or even a lot of low quality SEO tactics kind of work their way into being highly visible for Google searchers, because there's just a lot of complaints from people that they don't love to see spammy SEO content or overly optimized content in the search results. So there's a way to do SEO that follows Google's guidance, and it's essential. It's something that you have to do a certain level of SEO to be visible in search engines and large language models, and that's really the type of SEO that I would stick to for long-term SEO success. But there's shortcuts, and just because search engines haven't figured out your current shortcut doesn't mean they won't eventually, especially as more and more people try to emulate that strategy. So we've seen this time and time again with these bigger updates like the Panda update, like the Medic update, where something that's working really, really well in SEO, it's driving a lot of visibility, but it's not in the best interest of searchers. they'll create some new type of algorithm update or new spam policy to demote those tactics. So if you're comfortable losing everything you've built, maybe 3 months from now or 6 months from now, we call this turn and burn. There's a lot of people that build a lot of websites really quickly and kind of lose that visibility once they've gained a lot of traffic and search engines caught on to them, and then they kind of lose all of it, and maybe they start a new project. That's one approach to SEO. There's a lot of people doing that type of work, but for real brands that can't afford to lose everything that they've built, they want to play the long game and they really want to drive a lot of SEO success over time, you have to play by the rules. You have to adhere to those guidelines and not look for little loopholes and shortcuts that can drive short-term SEO success. So read the guidelines, understand the policies. There's content policies on Google, there's link spam policies on Google. A lot of people will do certain tactics without realizing that they're actually against the guidelines. So the more that your SEO team can kind of memorize and internalize and check those guidelines against any approach that you're using for SEO, the safer that you'll be in the long term.